Okay, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to once again hop into the Pimax Crystal. I'm playing in Open XR and I'm flying out of my hometown, Saskatoon, at Airport Diefenbaker, named after a former Prime Minister. And its call sign is CYXE. But we're not going to be talking very much about the city or the airport or even this lovely little tiger moth that we're flying. And you can get a ride in a tiger moth here in Saskatoon too, if you like, at the Air Museum. They have a nicely restored tiger moth, and they will sell you a ride in it to raise money for the museum. But what I'd like to talk about today are things that I love about Pimax and things that I don't love quite so much. I wouldn't use the term hate, because I've had a generally very good experience with Pimax products going back 4 years now. But there are some things that I don't like very much. And I think we'll just do a little flying around my hometown here. Try and keep it straight on the runway here. There we go. And off we go into the wild, cloudy yonder. I'm still waiting for the update to my beta firmware, which I hope will, I'm sure it will, clear up my audio problems. The graphics themselves look wonderful. As we fly over the airport, you can see the radome and the tower, and of course we're not doing the smartest thing in the world, doing a flyover, but anyway, this is not about CYXE, although I'll tell you it's a nice airport to fly out of. I haven't flown in years, of course, due to health reasons, but I enjoyed flying out of here. I found that the air traffic control people were very good, very professional, and very helpful. And there were some great pilots here too. Can't say that I was one of them, but there were great pilots here. So, what do I dislike about the Pimax product? Well, let's make it a little broader than just the crystal, because I've kind of fallen in love with the crystal. Not to say that other people haven't had issues, and we'll talk about that. But the things that bug me about Pimax that I dislike, I only have maybe 3 things, but they're kind of big things, I think. I don't like that it doesn't always work perfectly out of the box for everybody. My Pimax 8KX was a bit of a nightmare for me when I got it. And it took quite a bit of work and research and online help from the Pimax staff, even to the point where they assigned a tech to work on my computer from overseas to get it working. Once we did have the 8KX working, it was great, except that every so often I'd have trouble with the firmware update. But over the 2 or 3 years that I've owned the 8KX, that's gotten better and better, and firmware updating has gotten easier and easier as the firmware improves. But that's been an issue for me. And there's also a positive out of that, which I'll talk about when I get to the things that I love. The other thing that I'm kind of annoyed about, I'm not angry exactly, but I don't understand how it's happening. I'm reading in the Discords that I follow, like Steve's Discord from VR Flight Sim Guy, and there are people who are getting their Pimax crystals and having all kinds of trouble that I didn't have. Trouble with the lenses, trouble with setup, trouble with all sorts of things. And of course some of these could be user error. But for me, the Crystal was plug and play. I plugged it in, I turned the computer on, bingo, bango, Bob's your uncle. But that's not the experience everyone's getting. And I would love to write that off to just somebody doing something silly, because I've done that in the past. But I really believe there may be more to it than that. Because the people I've talked to on these Discords are honest. They're not making stuff up. They're literally having problems. And I think some of the problems are not in design or in firmware. They're in quality control. I want to talk to Pimax about this, but I really feel like a lot of us are getting headsets. Like, I have a pre-production headset with plastic lenses, and it's great. I haven't had any problems. The visual clarity is great for about 90% of the area of the lens on each side. It's terrific, but that's not everyone's experience. So I have to think that some of those people may be the author of their own misfortune by not setting it up correctly, but in that case, maybe they need to be given better directions. And I think in at least several cases that I've come across, it's a quality control issue. There's something wrong with the hardware. In some cases, they've arrived with something broken. So, to my mind, that's the biggest thing that I don't like. I don't like to see people not enjoying a headset that I love because of QC issues. So I'm gonna ask Pimax about this, because I wouldn't say anything in here that I'm not prepared to ask them about in the Discord. And I'm going to ask them exactly what they're doing to ensure that every headset that gets packed actually works. Do they have just an assembly bench, or do they have an assembly bench and then a test bench where every headset actually gets tested? I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand why some people are having such issues while most of us are not. But the percentage of people who are not having a good experience is high enough to make me upset for them and for Pimax, because they've got a great product and they need to ensure that the product they're supplying their customers is as good as it can be. Was there another thing I didn't like? Oh yeah, this is kind of a minor thing. Steve at VR Sim Pilot said that he didn't like that when he picked it up he could accidentally trigger the IPD adjustment switch. Well, that's not an issue for me because I pick it up by the strap, and I've learned to do that because the lower strap on the top of the head always seems to collapse down, and if I don't pick it up and hold it out of the way when I put the headset on, it kind of scrunches up against my scalp, and my big old Charlie Brown head gets pretty uncomfortable. So those are the things I don't like. It comes down to a customer service thing, really, when it's quality control. And I can't speak to issues people have had dealing with Pimax as customers with customer service. But I can tell you, even the people who have complaints about the Crystal are saying that Pimax gave them a lot of assistance, and a couple of them actually warned that if you buy the headset, you can't expect that kind of assistance because you're just a lowly consumer. That's not true. With my 8KX, I had all kinds of problems. I was just a lowly consumer, which is basically what I am today. I mean, if you're a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I thank you very much. But I don't expect ever to be a giant in YouTube. This is just something I do because I love my hobbies and I want to share them. But as a little customer who bought one headset from them, I got all the support I needed, up to and including remote help via the internet from a qualified technician who spoke English pretty well and was able to actually go into my computer, figure out what was wrong, fix it, and get the thing working again. Now, I know of at least one YouTuber who refused that service because he wasn't comfortable with allowing somebody else access to his computer. Okay, that's fair. If you feel like that, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'm going to say this. Don't complain about Pimax technical support if you don't take the support that's offered. Because they were nothing but great with me. Where they're still falling down a bit is in communication. I forgot to mention that. But that's another area where I think there's a positive that I'm seeing. They're communicating better. I mean, this launch for the Crystal has not been great. It's been a mishandled launch, and I expected better this time around. But shipping out the headsets with plastic lenses was probably a mistake, but I could understand the pressure that Pimax is under. And I want to make it clear that the Crystal's plastic lenses are amazing for me. They aren't for everybody else, but again, that comes back to quality control. But this has not been a great launch, and I think they need to get their communications under control. I believe they're improving there. I really do. They sent out an apology to all their early purchasers, explaining what had happened, and they're going to send the glass lenses, and I believe the glass lenses are actually shipping this week, according to the people I talked to at Pimax in the Discord. The lenses have arrived and they're shipping out, so that's great, along with an additional power supply so that you can play for more than 3 or 4 hours on a battery. Although I can't think of any point at which I'd do that, because I'm old and I need to get up and go to the bathroom long before 3 hours are up, trust me. But if you're in a sim race like iRacing, maybe you do. And plugging that auxiliary power unit in to the USB-C port on the Pimax headset will probably extend the playtime by at least an hour. So that's a good thing. But you know, they should have been upfront about this right from the beginning. It all starts with being way too optimistic about their completion times. And well, you're under pressure from your investors and from the consumers and frankly from your own enthusiasm. Because that takes me to the next thing I love about Pimax. They really love this business. They're a small company. They started with 4 guys in the equivalent of a garage, I think, and then they've grown to 300 people. And they're well financed, and they're doing their absolute damnedest to improve in every way. And I've got to respect that. The other thing I respect about Pimax is they don't settle. Sure, they promise a lot. They eventually deliver most of it, but in the 8KX's case, they weren't able to deliver everything, at least not perfectly. And in the Crystal's case, they've promised quite a bit. Like eye tracking isn't available yet, but I'm hoping to have a revision to let me test it this week. But that's in Toby's hands to some degree. Standalone, all of those things were promised. And so that they're not available when the headset is shipped to customers is kind of a downer. And it makes people forget that the Pimax, even without those things, offers much more than the Aero. And and the Aero is a great headset. But that's Pimax's error. They would have been far better off being more realistic in their estimates of completion times. And I think they may have learned that lesson for the 12K because they're being really hush-hush about it and not making any promises and being quite open about what issues they're having to solve, which I think is a great step forward. But as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't have an official launch until I'm ready to load those suckers on FedEx trucks and ship them out. And even then you have to expect there's going to be some glitches. So I love Pimax for aiming high and working on the cutting edge of VR at the consumer level. You don't have to spend $3,500 and buy a subscription to get this kind of visual clarity. $1,500 US. It's expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than even an Aero. And in the future, I think the competition from Pimax is going to force Vario, who makes a wonderful product, to make it even better. And Vario, in return, will be pushing Pimax. And Somnium, when they come along, will be pushing everybody. So I think all this competition at the high end is a really good thing. A really good thing. What else do I like about Pimax? Well, I think I mentioned customer service. It's so much better than people think it is. Customer communication is another issue that I've talked about on the negative side. But overall, my love relationship with Pimax is much more love than hate. There's love and dislike, I would say. Things that frustrate me. But for me, the Pimax crystal has been completely plug and play. Twice I've had trouble getting it to be found by the computer, and in both cases it was a stupid mistake I made. I think I had a cable disconnected once that I didn't notice, and the other time I had accidentally, what the hell does this switch do? Flipped it over to standalone mode. So then, of course, it didn't need the computer, didn't even look for it. So in two cases, the issues were my fault. But in both cases, when I contacted Pimax support, they were right on it to help me and to see what the problem was. I sorted it out before they could get back to me the next day when I realized I'd just been an idiot, which I don't think came as any surprise to them, nor would it to anybody who knows me. I'm not always the sharpest tool in the shed. But overall, I would recommend this headset to anybody who wants Aero quality with a little better field of view and a few more options at $1,000 less. And it's at least $1,000 less because you don't have to buy base stations and you don't have to buy hand controllers. They come with the Pimax. And if you want to, you can eventually do standalone mode. It doesn't appeal to me, but I know it does to a lot of people. So is Pimax perfect? No, they aren't. They've got some stuff to work on, and they know it. But acknowledging that you've got things to work on and actually fixing it, well, that's where we get into the deeds, not words things. And I'm pretty confident that Pimax has passed the talk stage and they're going to start walking the walk, because I really love this product. I love this product. The only thing I wish for is another 20 degrees of horizontal field of view. And they're supposed to be developing a wide field of view lens, which I hope to be able to test at some point too. So we're just flying around Saskatoon, and there's Clavette Airport out that way. And we're over the city here. You can see why they call it the City of Bridges. There are a lot of bridges in Saskatoon. Maybe I'll just turn this into a bit of a scenic tour here. Let's throttle back a bit and follow the river. I grew up in this town and it has changed a lot since my salad days. There's the airport. I'll tell you what, let's go the other way. I want to show you a little bit of the city. It's right on the prairies where your dog can run away and you can watch it do so for 3 days. Let's go downtown. Saskatoon has about 200,000 people, I think. It's not a huge city, but it's a pretty one. Lots of trees, a beautiful river. Lots of things happening along the river. One thing I've noticed with the Asobo scenery, though, and I might need to run an update, is there's a little bit of artifacting on that bridge in the middle there. That should be an iron bridge. And it looks like there's blankets draped across it. So, yeah, that's not... Then as we get closer, does it get better? No, not really. So that's one issue. But I don't think that's Pimax's fault. Now, better put a little more power in so we don't sink too much. And we'll go back along the river and check out a landmark or two. Oh, off the right wing here is the Bessborough Hotel. One of the hotels that the railroad built when they were moving around Canada, and it kind of looks like a castle, doesn't it? If I set this at a nice high resolution and fly around it, I swear to goodness if I looked in the window, I could see people moving in and out of their rooms. It's right off the right wing now. And there's the University Bridge. Across to the university, I'm sort of looking at it. I did 2 degrees there and part of a third. It's a good facility. Okay, let's go land. If I can. Well, I'll tell you what, the instrument panel looks great in here. And the buildings and the trees and everything just pops. And that's the way, I like it. I guess what I ask of you is to give Pimax a fair assessment. There are a lot of people out there who have jumped on the hate Pimax bandwagon without ever having tried one, much less owning one. And there are a couple of reviewers out there who don't like Pimax. And that's fine. But their critical thinking skills are weak, because I know of at least one who actively solicited only negative comments on Twitter. He said, share your negative experience with Pimax with me. So when you're only actively looking for evidence that supports your existing bias, that's not critical thinking. Not even close. Critical thinking demands that you look at both sides, at all the available evidence, compare them, thesis and antithesis, and decide which side has the best evidence. It's hard to do that if really all you're doing is finding evidence that supports what you already believe, which is what too many people do. So give Pimax a chance. I think everyone agrees that the visuals on the crystal are great, but you kind of owe it to yourself to see what you think. All right, let's chop the throttle. And we'll just try and get as straight as we can, maybe a little bit of power here. Let's keep the nose straight. One bouncy wouncy, 2 bounces, 3. Okay, we're down. 3 little bounces. My tail dragger instructor told me if you bounce more than 3 times, hit the power and go around. But those were very gentle little skimming bounces, and I'm hardly ashamed of them at all. The hardest thing is to keep the tail dragger straight as you go. All right, let's get off the runway. Okay. So that's it. That's my what I love and what I don't love quite so much video about Pimax. And my earnest request to you to be fair. Be fair when you're evaluating products. Don't just jump on a bandwagon and love it because everybody does, or hate it because everybody seems to. Look at both sides, look at all the evidence, and form your own opinion. And if you're really a critical thinker, you'll hold that opinion only so long as evidence supports it. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope I haven't bored you too much. That's really all I have to say today. So, thanks for stopping by, and do come back again. I appreciate every one of you very much.